Good morning, students. Today I will discuss with you interest articulation. In fact, this is the third class on interest articulation, and this is the last class as well. In the previous class of interest articulation, due to some technical problem, I could not complete the class the way it should be completed, and that's why uh, I could not explain, all access channels of interest articulation. In the last class, I discussed with you some non-formal means of articulation and formal and institutional means of articulation. I discussed with you how violence, uh, you know, is a means of articulation, how personal connection is a means of articulation, how elite representation is a means of articulation, how mass media is a means of articulation, and what I could not discussed in the last class, that how political parties, how legislature, bureaucracy, cabinet, these two are the means of articulation. And today in this class, I will discuss these rest two political parties as a means of articulation, first, second, legislature, bureaucracy, and cabinet as a means of interest articulation. Along with it, in today's class, I will discuss with you the styles of interest articulation. Style of interest articulation basically means it is a way of performance, or it is a mode of expression of demands by various interest groups. And what are these modes? Let me, unpack the important modes of interest articulation, styles of interest articulation, different ways of performance by the interest group, and what are those different ways. There are manifest interest articulation, there are latent interest articulation, there are diffuse interest articulation, there are specific interest articulation. Interest articulation can be general, interest articulation can be particular, then interest articulation may be instrumental, and interest articulation may be effective. So these are uh, different styles of interest articulation. Okay, let me start today's class. That political party is a means of interest articulation. What is a political party? Now, if you type it in the Google and the Wikipedia, you can get what is a political party. I am reading it from there, that a political party is an organization that coordinates candidates to compete in a particular country's election. So, political party is a organization that is related with the election. Every political party wants to win a election, because political parties, they want power to work for the people, right? So when political parties are related with election, that means political parties cannot ignore individuals interest, groups interest. They cannot go against the individual interest or group interest directly, right? But at the same time, political parties are not for the satisfying the interest of group or people. They have their own interest as well. So there is a kind of bargaining within the political party, to what extent they will satisfy the interest of the other side, and to what extent other side will satisfy the interest of political party, especially during the election, and to some extent after the election as well. So political parties and their role, uh, in satisfying the interest of the individual and the group, makes political party as a channel of interest articulation. Remember, when political party articulates interest, that doesn't mean that political party has no interest, right? Political parties do have their own interest, and they do a kind of you know uh, judicious decision, what they will I mean what interest uh, they will satisfy, and what interest they should not. So that is always a judicious decision. And if you see political party, you can also find different political party, they have their own ideological standpoint, right? There are different ideology which is the base of that political party. Some of the ideology is emerging ideology, and some of the ideology is the established ideology. But without ideology one cannot imagine political party. So in that sense, some of the political parties are ideological party, and these ideological party do have a hierarchical structure in it. And these ideological party, they are more likely to control the you know affiliated interest group than communicating demands what these interest group generate. Now all these ideological political party to Almond, they try to control the interest group. They don't communicate the demands of the interest group to the political system. In some sense, these ideological political party, they do a kind of manipulation. They don't deny the interest group, but they satisfy the interest of that interest group in such a way that that interest group will also work for the political party. And they you know they try to have a control over that interest group, so that that interest group will also work for the political party. And that continuous help is always expected by the political party from that interest group. So these ideological political parties, they simply don't communicate the demands of the interest group. Rather, they try to control the interest group, so that the political party will also get the benefits of the interest group. At the same time, Almond is also skeptical about the decentralized party. Generally decentralized party are mostly termed as the democratic party. And democratic party, uh, it is a party for the people, by the people, blah blah blah. I'm not saying what is democracy. So mostly the democratic party is supposed to be receptive to the demands of the individual and the group. But Almond found that the decentralized party, in other words, what I say, democratic party, decentralized party, Almond found that that may be less receptive to the demands of the demands of the individual and the group. Whether it is a decentralized party or whether it is an ideological party, why Almond is skeptical about it? Because every political party, it is also one kind of interest group, because uh, it has its own interest and it cannot go against its own interest while satisfying the interest of the other. Right. So this is all about political parties as a means of interest articulation. Then the second, and the sorry, not second, I think, in the institutional means, formal institutional means of interest articulation, I said that there are three formal institutional means of articulation: mass media, political party, legislature, bureaucracy, and cabinet. So I have, in the last class I discussed mass media, and today I just discussed political party. And the last, the third institutional means of articulation is the legislature, bureaucracy, and cabinet. Now this legislature means it is what I will say, it is non-executive, but they do have power. Bureaucracy means they are uh, permanent executive or non-political executive, and cabinet means they are uh, political executive or non-permanent executive. And legislature means uh, they are executive as well as non-executive, because legislature means government and the opposition, and there are some individual independent political party or legislators as well. Now this LBC, I say, for legislature, bureaucracy, cabinet, I in short for my used LBC. Now LBC is an common channels of access. So interest group, they try to contact with LBC, because LBC means they are uh, you know either they make rules regulation, or they implement the rules and regulation. So legislature, bureaucracy, cabinets, these three LBC are related with making of rules regulation and implementation of the rules regulation. And interest group, they do understand the importance of this LBC, because this LBC can also play a crucial role satisfying the interest. So they contact with LBC, because LBC is very important means of serving their interest. Now interest group may use different standard lobbying tactics to access LBC. I mean, they do a kind of lobby in order to get favoritism from this LBC. Either they do the representation before legislative committee, this is one way, and second, informing the individual legislator or minister, etc., or bureaucrats, etc. Right. So the different sorts of relation between the interest group and the bureaucracy constitute a topic of research. I mean, people do research on the relation between the interest group and bureaucracy, how interest group use the bureaucracy, and how bureaucracy use interest group, and how uh, you know I mean, the kind of relation between the bureaucracy and the interest group, how uh, it is being uh, what I will say, uh, it is being developed. Right. This is a topic of research. People, students do research on this topic. So this is all about your means of interest articulation, formal institutional means of interest articulation. Next, what is the style of interest articulation? So style of interest articulation basically means a way of performance of interest articulation. In which way, interest articulation function takes place. So the way can be manifest, the way can be latent, the way can be specific, the way can be diffuse, the way can be general, the way can be particular, the way can be instrumental, the way can be effective. And these different ways are in fact different modes of expression of demands by the various interest group. What is a manifest interest articulation? Now manifest interest articulation, manifest basically means to be shown clearly. So something is manifest means something is seen very clearly. The person who is manifesting it, that person is showing, that person is saying or showing something very clearly. So a manifest interest articulation is an explicit formulation of a claim or demand, explicit form of a claim or demand. On the other hand, a latent articulation, latent basically means not yet well developed. Latent means, I'm repeating, not yet well developed. So latent articulation uh, is a form of behavioral or mood uh, cues which may be transmitted to political system. So much of the articulation in the society is latent. Therefore, it is quite difficult for political elite to measure and respond to these demands accurately. Let me give you example where you can understand it, and this example is purely mine. From my own thought, I am giving this example. For example, suppose one interest group in Gujarat, they claimed that Narendra Modi is the reason of Godhra riot, right? And they start uh, you know using different platform. They start giving various kinds of justification in different you know different places, right? And they try to give a message to the people at large that Modi is a communal person, right? So this is what I call it is a latent articulation. It is a latent articulation because even if they are giving a kind of justification in different platform, but their justification will not make Narendra Modi as a communal person, right? So this is a latent articulation. What is a manifest interest articulation? If the interest group goes to a court, rule of law, takes the help of rule of law, go to the court and fight against Narendra Modi in the court. If he if that interest group proves that Narendra Modi is responsible for the Godhra riot, hence he is a communal person, then uh, we can say that that interest group is having manifest interest articulation. This is the way of expressing your own interest manifestly, right? Now once court gives a order that Narendra Modi is a communal person, then Narendra Modi will become a communal person. So this is just an example from my mind, I just gave it. So interest group can do either go to the court and prove Narendra Modi as a communal person, and thereby the the interest of that interest group will be satisfied. Otherwise the interest group can also apply the express its interest latently. Thereby the interest of the interest group may not be satisfied because people may not accept the justification, because people have trust over the judicial system, right? So uh, many times when political party tries to understand the interest of the interest group, they fail to understand when interest group articulate their interest latently, or when there is a latent articulation from the interest group. Political elite, they don't they cannot understand it properly, they cannot measure it, and they cannot respond it accurately because they exactly don't know what the interest group is trying to do, right? But if there is a manifest interest articulation, then uh, you know uh, it becomes very easy for political elite to understand it, to measure it, and to respond it effectively. And the second style of interest articulation is the diffuse interest articulation or specific interest articulation. Now, what is diffuse articulation? Now, diffuse articulation seldom provides accurate cues uh, for decision making policy, and specific articulation provides inputs to the decision maker for the legislature. Let me give you example. What is a diffuse articulation? So, diffuse articulation, as I said, that it seldom provides accurate cues for the decision. For example, if interest group is having if any interest group says this statement that politics is too corrupt, right? Politics is too corrupt. Now this statement, just think that whether this statement is providing accurate uh, you know uh, cues for the decision maker to make a policy. What the decision maker will do, what the decision maker will do so that the interest group will say that politics is not corrupt, right? So this particular statement, it is a if interest group uh, in having this interest that politics is too corrupt, hence corruption must disappear or politics should be reformulated. Now if such is a interest of any interest group, then the decision maker may not understand it, because this particular interest is diffuse in character. It doesn't provide accurate cues for the decision maker to make any policy. uh, let's take the example of specific articulation. Now specific articulation, I mean, if the interest group is having a specific interest articulation, then the interest group will say that $2 minimum wages. Now it is very much specific. It is very much specific. It is not diffuse. $2 minimum wages, right? So the minimum wages will be $2. Minimum wages will be, for example, 500 rupees. Now, if such is a interest or demand of an interest group, then certainly this is very much clear, very much specific, where the decision maker can also think about it and can bring a policy which may satisfy the interest of the interest group. So this is what the interest group can be diffuse, and interest articulation can be diffuse, or interest can be articulated diffusely, or interest can be articulated specifically. Then the interest articulation can be general, interest articulation can be particular. Now the general demands are expressed in associational group term. For example, rich be taxed more heavily, right? So this is a general demands, that rich be taxed more heavily, and particular demands are expressed in individual or family term. For example, a request for an exception to immigration law, right? This is also, this is two different ways of expressing the interest, right? uh, the expression of a interest by a interest group can be general, or it can be particular. Here general means something which is related with the common good, something which is related with all. For example, if rich is taxed more heavily, then the tax money can be used for the society as a whole, so that from the rich to poor, they will get the benefits of those taxed money. I mean, the government will use the tax money for whom? For society, for people at large, right? So this is what a general articulation. And if it is a particular articulation, then the demands are expressed in individual or family term. For example, an interest group can also request for an exception to the immigration law. Maybe uh, I mean, such particular articulation by the interest group serves the interest of the individual, or serves the interest of the family, serves the interest of the micro entity. But if the articulation is general, then it serves the purpose of uh, you know large people at large, right? Serves the purpose of macro, not micro. So this is what the interest articulation can be general, interest articulation can be particular, right? And the last mode of interest articulation is that articulation of interest may be instrumental, or it may be effective. Effective articulation takes the form of a simple expression of gratitude, anger, disappointment, or hope. An instrumental articulation takes the form of bargain with the consequences, right? Uh, if the interest group articulates a interest, instrumentally, right, then that interest group will be free from any kind of emotions. I mean, I'm repeating, if the interest group articulate their interest instrumentally, then they will be free from the emotion, and they think everything rationally, they listen carefully, and they try to bargain with political elite, and they exactly know what will be the consequence of that bargaining. So this is what the instrumental articulation of, I mean, interest by the interest group. Now the mode of articulation by the interest group can also be effective. Effective means people, they use their emotion. They don't, I mean, the interest group don't use the rationality. The interest group use the emotion, expression of gratitude, anger, disappointment, hope, right? This is also the way, this is the effective articulation. People may use such ways uh, to give a message to the decision maker, so the decision maker may understand their effective orientation and try to do the necessary policies. But in comparison to the instrumental articulation and effective articulation, instrumental articulation is always better, because in instrumental articulation the ball is in the hand of interest group, but in the effective articulation the ball it goes in the to the hand of decision maker. So these are the different styles of interest articulation, and the style of interest articulation reflects the political culture of a articulating group. Right. I mean, which interest group, I mean, the interest group in a country and the style they use for their articulation, it makes the culture of that country, and it is also the product of that culture of that country. It is the product of the political culture of that country as well, right? I mean, it is due to a particular, no, I'm unpacking it. It is due to a particular political culture. People, I mean, interest group, they use a certain kind of styles of interest articulation, right? But at the same time, uh, you know the style of interest articulation, it also forms the political culture of a state, right? So this is all about your styles of interest articulation, and I want all my students to read that chapter, interest articulation, written by Almond in the book Comparative Politics: A Developmental Approach. There, uh, you know if the student will go through it, maybe my lecture will help them to understand it. But they may find the language, they may find some other understanding meaning, so that it will help them to write answer in the exam well. So thank you. And in the, maybe I will take one or two classes to complete your course. I will not deal with your third unit, but on I will deal with your fourth unit. Your exam is very much nearer. I will deal Blondel model of, I mean, classification of political system. Maybe within two classes, I will complete it, and it will serve your purpose. It will help you to write in your exam. Okay. So thank you very much.